Tonight on the Daily Debrief, a California man accused of killing a family of 4, all because of finances. Also, a look ahead to this week's new cases. One against a college president accused of lying about a national sexual assault scandal. The other about a 4-month-old left to die in his chair. This is the Daily Debrief for Monday, January 28th. Keller here, along on the Daily Debrief with attorney Brian Buckmire. Testimony in the case of a California man accused of murdering a family of 4 is focusing on forensics and money this evening. Defendant Charles Merritt could face the death penalty if convicted in the killings of his business associate Joseph McStay, McStay's wife, and the McStay's 2 boys. Authorities at first wondered if the McStays fled to Mexico to avoid business debts, but a dirt biker later located their bodies buried in the desert years after they disappeared. That is when suspicions focused on the defendant. This is a long trial expected to last up to 6 months. Testimony has been slow, but it has been important. This morning, a business contact testified about sending additional money to the McStay's business to finish a project. Here is cross-examination.
Your testimony was that you get involved when there's a problem, correct? With the subcontractor?
Yes.
Would it be fair to say that before you contacted Chase Merritt, you had been contacting someone else at Earth and Fire Products, correct?
Yes.
Who was that?
I was going through the emails and the contact information on their website.
And that, do you recall speaking with a Dan Kavanaugh?
I do know I spoke with him. I believe I spoke with him after I spoke with Chase.
So the first time you contacted anyone about the waterfalls was Chase Merritt?
I probably called every number on their page, emailed whoever I could just to get a hold of somebody.
You spoke to Dan Kavanaugh and Susan Blake as well, correct? Both of those individuals?
I did.
And both of those individuals you spoke with prior to speaking with Mr. Merritt or after, do you recall?
I don't think I talked to either one of them before I talked to Chase Merritt.
Dan Kavanaugh is the man the defense is pointing to as an alternate suspect in this case. The defense went on and tried to figure out just who was taking in payments after the McStay family disappeared. Recall that prosecutors are accusing Chase Merritt of having a financial motive to kill the family.
When you talked to the detective, all the money for the waterfall had been paid, correct?
I believe so.
Okay, and you told them that the money was sent to Dan Kavanaugh, correct?
Objection misstates the testimony.
Yes, if that's correct.
I don't know where the money went. I have no idea.
Then why did you tell the detective that they wired the money to Dan Kavanaugh?
Objection argumentative.
Sustained.
You don't remember telling the detective that we sent half to Dan Kavanaugh and half somewhere else, did you?
No, I don't.
Okay. And as far as you knew, at the time, your company had sent the $12,000 to Dan Kavanaugh. That's what your knowledge was at the time that you spoke to the detective, correct?
Objection misstates the testimony.
Sustained.
Perhaps a bit of a fuzzy memory there. Bottom line, that line of inquiry ended without a definitive answer, at least at that point in the case. Another business associate faced similar questions about who at Joseph McStay's company was taking in the money.
Do you know who she was in contact with at Earth and Fire Products?
I don't.
Were you aware that Mr. Merritt, the person that you were speaking with, and that was sometime later, correct?
Correct.
That he is not an employee of Earth and Fire Products?
Objection assumes facts not in evidence.
Objection sustained is false for speculation by this witness.
Do you know what Mr. Merritt's relationship was with Earth and Fire Products?
Objection speculation.
Overall, if he has a basis.
The conversation I had with Mr. Merritt indicated he was a partner.
A partner with Earth and Fire Products?
Yes.
Okay. And why would you make the check out then to Charles Merritt as opposed to Earth and Fire Products or the company?
The conversation I had with him went along the lines of, I'm not getting paid. If you want my help on this, I need you to pay me.
Buckmire is the man seated across from me with the three-piece suit today, Brian. So this seems like a pretty big deal. Merritt as a partner.
Do you know who she was in contact with?
According to that witness, but taking in the money directly himself after the family disappeared.
Yeah, it does lead one to believe that he had some sort of skin in the game and might have some sort of motive. I'm hoping the defense attorney, as a defense attorney, has some sort of rebuttal to that, either to explain the common course of businesses or how money typically flows. We don't always know how every individual business works, and maybe that's just how this one worked on this given day.
That's part of the question I had here, because we saw the defense bringing Dan Kavanaugh, their alleged alternate suspect, into this discussion, saying, well, Kavanaugh was taking money in as well as Merritt, and could this just be the case of a small business where the leader is gone, okay, for reasons that we now understand, but then everybody else is left trying to figure out, okay, how do we keep this thing rolling?
Exactly. I think where there, I mean, I'm sort of basically reiterating what you're saying, where there was already a structure in place, and the person second in command now to say, hey, this guy's gone, how do we keep running this? You can no longer continue through the same system. Money might have to come in different ways, in different shapes and forms, but that doesn't mean there's a nefarious intent behind it.
Well, yeah, I mean, prosecutors are going to continue to point it that way, but we're sitting here asking a lot of questions here. I have to ask about trial advocacy here. This is dry information. It comes in through these business records. There can be multiple interpretations. Is there a way, at least at this point, at this early point in the state's case, where attorneys could have livened this up a little bit, made it a little bit more interesting for jurors to absorb?
Unfortunately, for prosecutors, maybe not so much, because prosecutors have to be very particular in the way they bring in evidence, just the rules of evidence. As a defense attorney, we are not beholden to the same rules of having to check off every box and whatnot. I think a defense attorney can bring a little bit more flair to this here to keep them interested.
It's likely that during closing arguments, this will make a lot more sense. Brian, I'll check in with you again in a couple of seconds on this case. Recent testimony in the McStay case was filled with images from the grave as prosecutors elicited testimony about the recovery and examination of the McStay family's remains. A dirt biker in the desert discovered the skull of one of the McStays, and that led authorities to the graves of the entire family. Authorities also recovered the sledgehammer suspected to be the murder weapon. They further found a cord believed to have been tied around victim Joseph McStay's neck. Here is the dirt biker's 911 call.
Hi, I'm out here on a motorcycle out behind the dump, and I found what looks like a human skull.
Can you give me a location?
Yes. Okay. West of the 15 and north of the stockpile where the dump is. Let's see, maybe I should just call the local sheriff and tell them where on a map, because it's all dirt roads.
I understand, but I'm just looking for a starting point. And this is the local sheriff.
Oh, okay. Starting point. Start at the 15 north Starting Road exit.
Okay. Let's see, is it over by the landfill?
Yes. It's within, I'd say, about a half mile of the landfill. It's directly to the south of me.
Okay, so from the landfill, where are you?
Due north, approximately, I'd say a good 2,000 feet.
Okay. Did you find it in the landfill or just in a field out there near it?
In a field.
Prosecutors this week also played a police interview with defendant Chase Merritt. Here, he talks about the victim's finances. And remember, again, prosecutors say Merritt killed because he needed money.
Joseph doesn't have any enemies. Everybody loves Joseph. Everybody. He has no financial problems that I know of. I mean, him and I, things were tight over the last few months because of the economy, but stuff has been, over the last couple of months, things have started picking up. I know for sure that his bills are paid. I don't know of anybody that has anything to gain by Joseph being gone. I think everybody that I know has everything to lose. Everything. This business stems almost solely around Joseph. He does all of the sales. Dan's trying to send me some emails and trying to need to try to salvage some of the jobs that are trying to send stuff back.
Again, a reference there to Dan Kavanaugh, the defense's alternate suspect. The interrogation revealed further animosity between victim Summer McStay and defendant Chase Merritt. That animosity involved the tangled web of finances the defendant shared with the victims. Here, the defendant begins by mentioning victim Joseph McStay.
A super nice guy. I mean, he'll give you the shirt off his back. I mean, he'll do anything for you. And Summer's just the opposite. She's taking the shirt. Well, I don't know so much about that, but she won't give up anything. What's hers is hers, and what's hers is going to stay hers. And Joseph is more like, you need what? There you go. Hell, I mean, I've got, mine and Joseph's running tab is $10,000. He owes me $10,000. I owe him $15,000. If he owes me $5,000, I owe him $15,000. It just goes. And Summer never liked that because it was just always a running tab. If I needed money, I pick up the phone and say, hey, dude, I need a couple of $1,000. If he needed something done, he picks up the phone. Hey, dude, I need, and we got it done. Whatever it was, we got it done.
Money moving back and forth, and from there, the defendant discussed the financial troubles he shared with victim Joseph McStay.
We've been having financial problems for 6, 7 months, 8 months. Well, it's just business has been, it dropped right out from under us for like 3 months. There was almost no sales at all, and that killed us financially. My heart attack didn't help much.
So you don't have medical insurance, you have to get it out of pocket.
Out of pocket. I don't pay it all, and right now, actually, we're negotiating with the hospital, and this is $107,000.
How much debt are you in?
That's it. I mean, I don't really owe a lot of, because all of my bills, like when I buy good shit. When I buy stainless steel, stuff like that, pay cash for it. I don't really owe a lot of money except for the hospital. That's the big, and worst comes to worst, I won't be able to pay the hospital. I mean, I want to, of course, as my debt, but, I don't, in the financial situation we're in now, it's going to be iffy at least for a while, especially if Joseph doesn't get back pretty soon, my rent won't get paid at the end of this month, so that's not going to be fun.
Let's bring Brian Buckmire back into this discussion about the McStay case here. So, Brian, this sort of rounds out the picture of what we heard today, this interrogation recording where the defendant is saying he's having some financial issues, the business may have been having some financial issues, and he talks about having this running tab back and forth with Joseph McStay. Could that explain why these other accounts receivable individuals were saying today, okay, well, I was told to pay Chase Merritt directly? Maybe it's because the business owed Chase Merritt and Chase needed money, and that's just moving money in maybe a more creative way than the accounting rules would allow. But does it necessarily add up to first-degree murder?
No, it doesn't add up. But I think it goes back to what we were saying. Maybe this is just how the business worked, based on whatever was going on with the people involved. Maybe because of those gambling debts, he had to find different ways to finance himself, and maybe he didn't do it in the best way that is a good business practice, but it's definitely not attempted murder or murder of these 4 people And that's what I think the defense is going after.
We did hear sort of this underlying animosity between Summer McStay, the wife, and the defendant here. He's saying, well, gee, Joseph is one of the most generous men on the planet, but his wife knows she keeps things for herself. We've heard some testimony about that, and my guess is prosecutors are going to try to make that into a recurring theme here.
Absolutely. Whatever thing you can attach on as a defense attorney or a prosecutor, you want to try to have ring in the juror's ear as much as possible to try to sway them to your side.
And, of course, we know that some of the wounds that Summer faced were pretty serious, and that's why prosecutors are trying to say, hey, wait a minute, this defendant didn't like her, and that's why the wounds she suffered are more serious. A lot more to come in this case. We'll keep on it. Brian, we'll check in with you again at the end of the broadcast here, and still ahead tonight here on The Debrief. A look ahead to the other cases we'll be covering this week, including the death of a 4-month-old infant left to die, prosecutors say, by his own parents. We will return after this short break. Welcome back, folks. A preliminary hearing is scheduled this week for the former college president accused of playing a role in the Larry Nassar sex assault scandal. Luanna Simon faces charges she lied to investigators about her knowledge of the accusations against Nassar. The judge will determine if prosecutors have enough evidence for the case to move forward. Nassar pleaded guilty to federal and state sexual abuse charges. More than 100 people came forward as accusers. The trial of an Iowa mother accused of murdering her baby is set to kick off this week. The case is the second to go to trial involving the death of the infant Sterling Keene. A jury already convicted father Zachary. Now the mother, Cheyanne Harris, will go to trial. The state already secured a guilty verdict against that father, Zachary Keene, and is now pressing for yet another conviction under an Iowa law which says murder includes neglecting a baby to the point the baby dies. Here was the verdict against Zachary Keene.
Defendant, please rise. State of Iowa versus Zachary Keene. Verdict form, count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree. Count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of child endangerment causing the death of a child.
Zachary Keene took the stand during his own trial, and he told jurors his son's death was almost all Cheyanne Harris's fault. Here is some of the cross-examination.
Are you saying that Sterling's death is all the fault of Cheyanne Harris? No. You're saying that you have some responsibility?
If I would have known, yes, I do.
So you're saying that what you did wrong is you didn't know?
Yes.
You told this jury that you used methamphetamine, right?
That's correct.
But you told them the only reason you did it is to stay away from work, right?
Yes.
You told this jury that you gave Cheyanne Harris methamphetamine, right?
That's correct.
But the only reason you gave it to her is because she becomes difficult if you did it, right?
That's correct.
You told this jury that you used your company's credit card without authorization, right?
Yes.
But the only reason you did it is to feed your family, right?
Yes.
You told this jury that you didn't change diapers because you had a weak stomach, right?
That's correct.
And you couldn't handle the smell of feces, right?
Yes.
But you worked at a manure hauling company?
Human feces and animal feces are different in my nose.
Your nose is that fine?
Of course.
The defense also called Zachary Keene's dad to testify that Zachary's Amish Mennonite upbringing may have left him uncomfortable crossing gender roles to care for the child.
You are Mennonite, is that correct?
Yes.
Within your community, what is the role of women, though?
Generally, it would be that they would be the homemaker. They would take care of the house, raise the children, take care of the children. Because and yet, that somewhat, in some cases that changes because of finances, that the women are taking jobs outside the home.
What would the role of the man or the father be in the Mennonite household?
Generally, it would be they would be the
the one making the living, providing for the household.
Is that how Zach was raised?
Yes.
Sir, I'll ask you, within that family structure, if a man were to realize that something's wrong within the family, would he step up generally and help within your culture or within your faith?
Yes, generally.
One more time on this case to Brian Buckmire, criminal defense attorney here in New York City. So, Brian, Zachary said when he was up on the stand in his trial, this was almost all Cheyanne Harris's fault because he was out driving a truck, working long hours. She was the stay-at-home parent, and therefore he assumed she was caring for the child. He barely checked in on the child. But he also said that she was likely or possibly suffering from postpartum depression of some sort. Could the postpartum depression element be part of Cheyanne's defense strategy?
I would argue more than could. I would argue should.
Okay.
I think it's going to be very difficult when you get their different employments and how their scheduling worked, that a child would be left to this extent without someone noticing the child was not making any noise, was sick, was dead, was rotting, had maggots. I think there has to be something more than what the average person is going to say. Because at least when I look at it, and some of it has to do with stereotypes and the way that we perceive people, I've seen a lot of people do jobs, lawyers, doctors, cops, whatever it is. Parents are the ones that take their job the most serious, and to say that you're derelict in those duties, it's hard for people to swallow.
Yeah, I mean, in the testimony from the first responders in the original case against the father, just heartbreaking. They go in, realize there's nothing they can do for this poor child. Look, Cheyanne Harris has filed court documents suggesting a possible diminished responsibility or intoxication defense, basically saying that she was so drugged up that she couldn't possibly form the intent necessary to get a murder conviction.
One, was that self-induced? Because I know in many states that does not apply as a defense. Two, what drugs and for what period of time, and was there a period of time of sobriety? Again, you would have to evaluate about how long the child has been in that position.
Good observations, Brian Buckmire. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you. That's
all the time we have here on the Daily Debrief. We appreciate you watching. I'll see you back here on the Debrief at either 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock Eastern here on the Law&Crime Network. Our schedule is shifting depending on testimony in the McStay family murder case. For some of you, it's time to say goodnight. For others, I'll be sticking around for continued live trial coverage. We'll be headed back to the McStay courtroom when we return.